Hello, hello. Howdy there, fellow citizens of Gotham. Yeah, that's right. It's the Two Maesters. And today, we're going to be talking about the Batman Trilogy.
I'm Batman.
Yeah, that's right, Batman. You can wait your turn. Hello, Josh. How you doing?
Hey, Morgan. I'm really good. The week has been really good for me as well, with Ahsoka coming out earlier this week that I'll be watching over the weekend. But back to something more dark and more to do with the times, especially with Oppenheimer being big in the cinema, the Dark Knight,
which is also a Christopher Nolan film. Yes. It's almost like Christopher Nolan does all the big blockbusters these days.
Yeah, because then you've got like Inception, you've got Dunkirk, you also have Tenet as well. That were all him.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. He's kind of like a good director for the spirit of the times, because essentially, like, Batman Begins, which is where we're going to start our journey, is what kicked off his big career as the blockbuster director guy of the early 21st century. So Batman Begins, I think we should start off with, was in cinemas in 2005. It was written by Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer. Have you heard of David S. Goyer?
No.
No, neither have I, to be honest. No offense. So the story of Batman Begins is essentially the origin story of Bruce Wayne, from the death of his parents, his journey training of the League of the Shadows, to becoming Batman and fighting against his former master, Ra's al Ghul, and also, let's not forget, Scarecrow.
Yes.
Let's put a smile on that face.
Wrong bad guy. Couldn't find a Scarecrow soundboard out there, unfortunately. The comic book storylines such as Man Who Falls, Batman Year One, and Batman The Long Halloween served as a storyline inspiration. Have you read those comics?
No, but I have heard like the history behind it, especially with Batman's training by Ra's al Ghul, and the fact that in the comic books he actually wants Batman to marry his daughter.
Oh, damn. Yeah, don't know Batman. Yeah, he does. Talia al Ghul, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll see that in... I'm watching a friend play, was it Arkham City or something? Yes, yeah. Like Talia al Ghul's in it, as well as Ra's al Ghul. And it's like kind of some weird love thing they got going on.
Yeah, and like in even one of the comic books, they have a child together, and then the child takes over as being Robin.
Oh, that's so cute.
But it's not because,
Daddy's
like,
little boy.
Because like Batman's really hard on him, because he's like, because first of all, you found out he didn't know he had a son. So all of a sudden he finds out he has a son. And I think it's the comic book where, fans correct me if I'm wrong, that Robin has been killed. So then,
no.
So then his
the
son
OG Robin.
Yeah. So then his son then takes over being Robin. And it's kind of this relationship of like, kind of like God of War-esque, Witcher and Siri-esque type journey. But it's more of like Batman's like, well, it's kind of like Batman's being really hard on him because he's like, I know...
Doesn't want to pay child support.
I think that is also a major thing, because like if the child knows, and if his mother knows if that Batman's Bruce Wayne, that child support would be through the roof.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely. Yeah. I'd get a prenup. That's what I say.
And I think for Batman, it's kind of like he feels that he's responsible for him, and because of like his family, so his mother's side of the family, especially Ra's al Ghul, that he needs to be hard on him so he doesn't lean into that
League of Shadows, the influence,
and
that's
turning
true.
into an assassin. And I think that's the main reason why Ra's al Ghul wanted that Batman and his daughter to get it on, was to have a child that then could be potentially the best assassin. And Batman's hard on him because he doesn't want him to turn into that person.
Wow, I mean, if they only continue the Dark Knight trilogy after Dark Knight Rises, because he does get it on with Talia al Ghul, but there's no... It ends there, really.
Yeah.
But still, that would have been cool. Interesting. So, Batman Begins kind of came into the Batman franchise in the early 2000s, but this was after Batman and Robin in 1997. Your reaction says it all.
Yeah.
Like, it was very, very badly rated by critics. Yeah. It meant lots of rejection by Warner Brothers to reboot the Batman franchise. So essentially, when Christopher Nolan, said he wanted to do Batman Begins, they were like, "You sure? This is crazy. This could be like career suicide." And the expectations for Batman Begins was so low. So when Nolan and Goyer bought the rights to do it in 2003 to reboot the franchise. They wanted to try something new because clearly the camp sort of silly Batman had kind of reached us. And apart from Tim Burton's Batman was really good. But what was that called? Was that Batman Returns?
Yeah, that's Batman Returns.
Yeah, which was considered still pretty good, but unfortunately one of its kind until Batman Begins came along. So, they wanted to reboot the franchise with a darker, more realistic tone compared to previous interpretations. And boy, did they. The soundtrack and everything is so cool.
I'm Batman.
And like the way it presents Batman as just being a mortal with lots of money. They really emphasize that. He doesn't... I mean, you could pick at the movie like when he's standing on rooftops. There's probably, and realistically, how much crime are you going to identify from being up there? But I love the sort of rawness of seeing his journey in the beginning where he's struggling with the death of his parents and almost shoots the man that killed his parents. And he argues with Rachel, who's his like crush to never be. And she slaps him and he runs off and actually joins the life of crime and ends up in China, basically in a Chinese prison. And that's when Ra's al Ghul comes to him and basically gets him to join the League of Shadows. And man, so cool, the League of Shadows. Proper ninja. It's like, we can teach you to be invisible. It's like, how? Show me. And it's just like, well, just moving into a dark room. Very cool. So the box office for Batman Begins was $373 million. The budget was $150 million. So pretty good. Did well.
Yeah.
And there's quite a reliance on the use of models and stunts instead of CGI. So, for example, the Batmobile chase scene, which is epic with that really cool soundtrack, Molossus of Batman. Rachel's just been poisoned by a scarecrow and Batman is racing to get her back to his cave. Really cool. And that was mostly done with models and stunts instead of using CGI. There are obviously scenes of CGI, but Nolan wanted to try and avoid using that. And to be honest, I think the most obvious CGI is when the bats come in because, it's hard to get
model
bats.
those bats.
Yeah.
Or get some stunt bats in from the local zoo.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm Batman.
Unless Batman is like on hand on set to give you some bats to look after. Yeah, very cool. And the soundtrack. I mean, I think trilogies and sagas and great series of movies and TV shows are sometimes defined by their soundtrack because makes them memorable. Star Wars, you had that Binary Sunset. Lord of the Rings, you have Howard Shore's just epic dark scenes like the ring wraiths are coming so recognizable and just adds such a sense of dread to scenes.
Yeah, and even like you were saying one thing like The Godfather, it has that tone of like the string instruments. On
the day of my daughter's wedding.
Like another really good trilogy. Like the first two were amazing. The last film was good, but not as amazing as like the first two. But yeah, a trilogy always has to have like an amazing soundtrack. And I think even if it's not a series, like if you're developing something that you want to last time, like even Harry Potter, which is 7 films that they did, or potentially 8, I think, because the second film was 2 films, they split in half. They had a soundtrack, and like you would hear the soundtrack and you'd be like, yep, that's Harry Potter, or that's Lord of the Rings, or that's Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so recognizable. And then I come on a Pirates of the Caribbean one. Was that Hans Zimmer as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like he's like the godfather of movie soundtracks.
Yeah. I mean, guys, can we all just take a moment just to thank the God Emperor Hans Zimmer for bringing us the best movie soundtracks ever?
Yeah.
Like, man, this Batman one. So, for example, Molossus for Batman. If you haven't heard that, audience, I suggest you listen to that. I work out at the gym to that. Like, it's so epic and cool. And as we go through the other Batman series, the other Dark Knight movies in the series, we'll talk about some of the other songs that are just associated with it and how it transitions.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the reception of Batman Begins. Or maybe before we talk about the reception, let's talk about some cool scenes instead. So, in no particular order, I would say one of the coolest scenes is when Gotham, so the League of Shadows have got to the city. The toxin that they've been organizing for Scarecrow to pour into the drains is now being dispersed by the microwave emitting super weapon developed by Wayne Industries. And it is making everyone go crazy. They see monsters and their fears and everything, and people go nuts. Batman's flying over the city to confront Ra's al Ghul, but as he's doing it, people look up at him and see him as like the Batman in all the fearsome. I like the fearsome symbol that he represents, and that's why Batman Begins is so cool, because it's like, as a man, I am nothing, but as a symbol, as something so much more powerful. And it's just so quote worthy. Some scenes in that movie. I mean, I've got to admit, The Dark Knight's my favorite in this series, so I definitely picked out some more favorite scenes than that. But wow. And then when he finally does confront Ra's al Ghul sends like 2 members of the League of Shadows to take him on. He's like, I could easily take on 2 of your pawns. And Ra's al Ghul's like, as you wish. And he calls them more down. I was like, well done, Batman. Well done, you're arrogant. But something else as well, just Batman's voice. I kind of got used to it after a while, but I still felt like after watching Batman, I thought, wow, that was amazing. I think I was like 10 or 11 when I saw this, but I just couldn't get over Batman's voice. Like, I can easily take on 2 of your pawns. Yeah, very cool. Are there some scenes that you really liked in Batman Begins?
I would say the scene that I really do like is, the train scene at the end where Ra's al Ghul dies. I really love that scene. And I think...
You never learned to mind your surroundings.
And I think one thing that I did also like about it was that it kind of tried to like work on the whole superhero thing that, wouldn't they realize the person is by their voice? Like, the way that Superman is always like, yes, I am here. And he sounds exactly the same as Clark Kent.
Yeah.
And you're like,
they cover, or, the sort of more campus superhero dress of like covering your eyes with just that, like a mask that just sticks to your face. So now going to identify your lips, your jawline, your facial features. But if you just cover this bit,
or the glasses trick. Oh, he combs his hair backwards and then takes off his glasses, and it's like, but my brother's like, no, but he kind of, his posture as well. If you see him, he's like, he's more shrunk, and like his demeanor as well is like, don't look at me. But when he's a Superman, his shoulders are back. He's always looking up, broader, chest pumping out. And I was like, yeah, but come on, someone must have been like,
yeah. I mean, he's still gonna be pretty hench.
You
can hunch.
You can't hide those muscles.
Yeah, exactly. Especially ripped like a cheese grater. Like, come on, Superman. Yeah. And, I think that's what kind of appeals to, Batman Begins, because it really makes it quite real. Like, he has to put on a voice. But also, there's Batman and then there's Bruce Wayne. And, like, Alfred suggests to him, you're waking up at, even for billionaire playboys such as yourself, Bruce Wayne, 3 p.m. is pushing it. This is going to ask questions and stuff. You need to come up with some good excuses for those bruises on your body. Yeah. And you need to have another life as well to convince people otherwise. So he just puts on this big playboy attitude, like buying hotels, turning up with supermodels from the Russian ballet and stuff. I like the scene where he arrives at a hotel where Rachel is conveniently at a trust fund or something, turns up with 2 supermodels in a sports car, and he tosses the key to the valet and gives him tons of money. And it's like, the valet's like, nice car. And he's like, you should see my other one. I was like, yeah, boy, the Batman tumbler. In terms of like some of the aesthetics, what do you think of the bat suit compared to previous Batman costumes?
I would say it seemed more like armor than it did a suit.
Yeah.
Because like if you go back way back to the Batman in the 60s, it was kind of like just putting on like a leotard. And then you also saw like in the later Batmans in the 80s and the 90s, it kind of felt like a kind of like a suit that someone was putting on, but it kind of felt like more of like actual armor that actually can protect him. Because like in the previous film, it's like he was taking some heavy hits, and like if it's just some flimsy cloth, we're not going to believe that it's just going to be protecting him. And I think that was kind of the things that I really did like about The Dark Knight, and just the Batman Begins, the whole series itself, is that you also saw like the beating that Batman took,
Yeah.
that Bruce Wayne took, and also the bruising, the injuries, like he had to have. And I think that kind of brought in the realism of it as well. Like, oh, Batman gets in a fight with Bane. He's upright walking the next day from the one in the 90s.
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
I was waiting for that. Yeah, it's true. It does show Batman as very mortal in it because he gets bruises in this. He gets every now and then someone does land a punch in him, and it's a struggle for him to sort of recover from that. And he gets poisoned by Dr. Crane as well. One minute it was like, I think you just need to lighten up, and then sets him on fire after throwing alcohol on him. And he manages, luckily, Fox manages to save him and stuff and produces an antidote. But yeah, still quite risky being Batman. And he's human. He's not like Superman. He's not immortal.
Yeah.
Some of the cool character. Oh, go on.
Actually, I was going to lead on to what you were saying, like the cast that they were able to get into these films as well.
Yeah, they got a good cast.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Michael Caine as Alfred, that was just like it was meant to be, wasn't it? What was the point of doing all those press-ups? You can't lift a bloody log. Yeah, it's almost like, because he's the most archetypal British accent out there. Americans love that sort of stuff, don't they?
They do. And one person did say that recently, like, they never really get like an Alfred casting wrong, because like even with Jeremy Irons being Alfred, he also plays a really good
in the
one.
Batman.
Yeah, and also like Andy Serkis in the latest one, the one with Robert Pattinson.
Oh, sorry, that is the Batman. My bad. Yeah.
He also plays a really good Alfred there as well.
Yeah, I'd say so. Just any like iconic British actor.
Yeah.
It's good to have the guy who did Smeagol on there as well. Yeah. And who else? Morgan Freeman as Fox as well. Good witty comments between him and Batman. Like when Batman's first, going up to him to get technology, he's being shy about obviously what he's using it for.
Yeah.
It's like, do you have any armored materials? And he's like, are you expecting much gunfire in these caves, Mr. Wayne? Yeah, and even in the Dark Knight as well, it's like the separation of planing will make you more vulnerable to gunfire. And he's like, how will it do against dogs? Do you mean chihuahuas, or should do fine against cats? Like, love it. That dialogue's amazing. And there's quite a few, like,
one big one, Gary Oldman.
Oldman.
I always forget like he's British, because every time he puts on an American accent, he does a really good job.
He's an amazing actor, honestly. The amount of, some actors or actresses play the same role, over and over again. Like, I guess Tom Hardy's a bit more diversified, but usually he does play quite brutal, intimidating characters, but not all the time. God, I always get this on this podcast. I'm trying to give an example, and I can literally only think of one.
He played
Bronson.
Oh, you're talking about Tom Hardy. So he played Bronson. Then you've also got him playing Eddie Brock in. He played a completely different character when he played Eddie Brock, because he was more like a inquisitive guy trying to understand the world. He wasn't a big bruiser.
Yeah.
Then you also had like Peaky Blinders when he played Mr. Solomon in Peaky Blinders, which, funny enough, Cillian Murphy's in that as well.
Yeah, true.
And I think like Gary Oldman. I think the first time I did actually see him was this Bruce Willis film in the 90s.
Is it the Fifth Element?
Fifth Element, yeah. With Chris Tucker's in it. You've also got Gary Oldman.
Mila Jovovich as well from Resident Evil.
All in the same film, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an iconic movie, actually. I still see people go dressed up as that to like Halloween and stuff, like especially as Mila Jovovich's character.
Speak of the devil.
Oh, look, it's Mila Jovovich. I don't think our audience can be able to hear that. It's so quiet. But that's Bane, by the way.
And also, he was in a Dracula film that also had... what's his name again? The guy who plays Neo.
Oh, Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves is playing... Yeah, he plays the Doctor. Yeah. And Gary Oldman is the one who's playing Dracula.
Yeah, that was a weird film. It's weird seeing Keanu Reeves in like a very reserved British gentleman as opposed to Neo. But yeah, it does not matter who we are. All that matters is our plan. I'll cover for Bane from now. So, yeah, and who else do we have in terms of actors? Who was playing Rachel? It was
Katie Holmes. Yeah.
Katie Holmes, who magically looks really different in The Dark Knight. We'll get into that shortly. Who else was really good in it? I think that's it. That's really the main characters. Oh, but just a side note, Joffrey from Game of Thrones, or at least the character that plays Joffrey, also the actor that plays Joffrey is actually in Batman Begins, which is a good reference because he's like a kid and his parents are arguing and Batman gives him a little tool of his. And I saw a meme, it's like, use this tool for good. And he's like, I will. Here comes Joffrey on a weird meme side note. So the reception of Batman Begins was highly positive. What do you think was the Rotten Tomatoes critics consensus score?
I think critics are harsher now than they used to be, especially when it comes to superhero movies because there's so many of them. Maybe 75, 73, 74 possibly.
84%.
So even better than I thought, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think the audience score was?
I would say higher, so maybe 87 to 90.
94% actually.
Okay. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I bloody loved it. I think this is where I started my love for Batman because I wasn't really into superheroes up until I saw this movie. And even though I was like 10 or 11, which is, you're kind of quite innocent at that point, but I just loved the darkness of it and some of the morals behind it as well. Like, Ra's al Ghul justifying the League of Shadows, like criminals mock society's laws. Batman, Bruce, the only way you can deal with him is kill him. You have to execute this prisoner for stealing and murdering. And then just the whole idea behind Batman, like, it does not matter. Was it? It's not I am beneath the surface, but what I do that defines me. So many good quotes. Like, me and my friend quote this all the time. And so on Rotten Tomatoes, they describe Batman as brooding and dark, but also exciting and smart. Batman Begins is a film that understands the essence of one of the definitive superheroes. And he really is. He is a household name. Even The Batman, which is the most recent one with Robert Pattinson, they had to catch on to this brooding and dark nature that Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins started here. And on just a random note, it did receive an Oscar nomination for cinematography, just because everything looks dark in the movie. Like you barely see daytime in it, and it does have that sense of like, no, it's Gotham, and I guess they get the gothic sort of vibe from that. Really, really cool. Oh, what do you think maybe could have been done better for Batman Begins, if anything?
I would say potentially having more screen time for Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Because I think like Scarecrow is a major, like, he's a less known, but he also is a major Batman villain. Like, we all know that the Joker is the number one villain for Batman, but then you've got,
let's put a smile on that
you've got
face.
like the next tier, which you have like Bane, you have the Penguin, you have Scarecrow as well. I think I'm missing somebody else who's on that. Two-Face is probably is on that next tier. But yeah, like having more of like the Scarecrow within the film, and like at times it kind of felt like he was put as like kind of like later on through the series like this side character, and the main villain was the main person.
Yeah, that's true. Ra's al Ghul was the main villain. I don't really like it when they do that in superhero movies, that they just mishmash a lot of villains. Yeah, I do like it when they give one to focus on. And unfortunately, I think that's kind of the nature of a lot of superhero movies now, because everyone wants to see more on screen. But I say less is more, one villain per movie would be great, rather than...
I think one film that did it well, I would say, is, Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire, where you had Sandman, who was like a villain who wasn't a villain. You had Green Goblin, and you also had Venom as well. And they were all in the film. And I kind of think that the way it was directed, it handled it well. Because you saw like...
Was it the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man?
Yeah. That you could see like their origins within the... You saw their origins and the fact that all of them were related to Peter Parker in a specific way.
Yeah.
One was his best friend. And he was like, okay, you've killed his... So Harry Osborn, realizing Spider-Man had killed his father. In fact, his father had killed himself. He then turned into the Goblin. You also had Sandman, who's the person Clint Marko, who shot and killed Peter Parker's uncle.
Yeah.
Who then got turned into Sandman. And then you've also got like the guy, Eddie Brock, who then became like Venom, because Spider-Man was like dealing with the symbionte, was able to get rid of it, and then the symbionte felt rejected, so he went to someone.
Oh no!
So he went to someone who hated Peter Parker, who was the guy that Peter Parker basically was like, "Oh, those photographs are fake. I'm going to tell everyone, so you lose your job." So then that was a perfect storm. You hate Peter Parker? I hate Peter Parker. Let's kill him.
Let's be friends. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
I could see that. And thinking about in I guess the Scarecrow in this, he's in it, he's cool, but you just wanted more of him.
Yeah.
And he does come back in The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises.
Yes,
It's just
he
funny.
does.
He's the one consistent villain in all three. I think Cillian Murphy does him well, but it'd be good if he was just the main bad guy in it.
Because like the thing that people forget about him is that he's also a mental, like his main thing is like scaring people and also using drugs and toxins to make people see things that aren't there. So like even in like the Arkham game, one point the Scarecrow injects Batman with something, and then he is in a situation he's not sure what is real and what's not real.
I do remember playing that, and that was really cool. Like actually taking you out of the real world of Arkham, and then you actually there's some really cool levels within that. And then there's a bit where Batman comes across his parent, like he's seeing from the third person view of his parents being shot. And he goes over to their bodies and lies down on them as a child, and then just slowly the Batman symbol just appears over him. And I thought that's such a cool scene.
Yeah.
I guess that's something else I liked about Batman Begins is the way they showed Bruce's parents' death in it, because in a lot of the other Batmans, usually the person that's killed Bruce's parents turns out to be the Joker or some other big villain, but this is just someone who needed money. Just a random guy. Sort of, it's never mentioned how Bruce copes with, obviously the sad side of losing his parents, being a orphan, but actually how does he cope with the rage and the anger? And in this, it really shows that he was actually going to go shoot that guy at the trial, or was it the parole board or something?
Parole hearing.
I mean, I was going to say Katie Holmes. Rachel slaps him when he reveals he had the gun, but he didn't do it. Someone else shot him. Yeah, very cool. So now it's time for.
How about a magic trick?
I'm going to make this pencil
disappear.
I'm going to make our viewers disappear. Time for The Dark Knight, which, oh my God, one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Like when I watched this in cinema, I always feel like sequels can be a bit lackluster. Sometimes they can be really good, but wow, this is when the sequel completely tops the first movie. It was released in cinemas in 2008, and there was a sense with this that Christopher Nolan and David Goyer had really they experimented with Batman Begins to see if that new dark concept would work with audience for the Batman Begins movie, and it did. And they're like, okay, let's go even further with that now. And wow, do they. And just to summarize the plot, so the plot follows Batman and Police Lieutenant James Gordon and District Attorney Harvey Dent, who form an alliance to dismantle organized crime in Gotham City. Their efforts are derailed by the Joker, an anarchistic mastermind who seeks to test how far Batman will go to save the city from chaos. And wow, does he do it?
Let's put a smile on that face.
Does Heath Ledger do it well? Or what? Amazing.
He does.
So cool. And the Joker is probably one of the most iconic villains out there. And I think this movie really gave it the credit to the Joker that it needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the funny thing is, if you think about quotes that so many people say about that film, it is all quotes from the Joker.
Serious.
Exactly.
And it's and the thing is, I remember watching it for the first time and I was like, damn, wow. How much, I think this was a new side to the Joker that no one had seen, more hands-on violent Joker. Because the Joker's more like a strategist, I'll throw some poison gas, I will stand in a room, set up a bomb, stand in the background, blow it up, laugh at it. But then this one was nah, I'm going to be hands-on. I'm going to be involved from the off-put. And his plan was like, if you think about it, was mastermind. Like, you said that the triple alliance of Gordon and also Harvey Dent and Batman to then bring and reduce crime in Gotham. And the fact they then he basically came in and said, that guy's, remember, he goes, when the guy's on the television, he said, that guy's a squealer. I know a squealer when I see one.
Yeah.
And that's when he then does the magic trick. And then he's like, when he fails you, remember that I'm still here.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
literally he masterminded it, saying that Batman's still going to get him. So then they're going to come to me. And when they do, I will take their portion. So Batman, Harvey Dent, and Commissioner Gordon have put all of crime in Gotham into one pit. They put them all into one group.
They've cornered
I'm going to sweep in and take all of it. And you just see him actually do that. Like the smarts to do that. And I think also the fact how much through the film he's toying with him.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I never forget the scene where he's like, oh, Harvey Dent has been killed. And it's two police officers in a chair next to each other.
Yeah.
Harvey something and something Dent
in
a chair next to each other. And like, yeah. Or the fact that at
the
the
silly
beginning,
little weird dark jokes. Yeah.
And like remember at the beginning of the film where you've got the guys who are being vigilantes who are shooting at Scarecrow.
Yeah. I'm not wearing hockey pads. Yeah.
And like the fact that he then hangs one of them and he hits the building. Like, I think people, because it's such a big film and so many key events happen, people forget how many things the Joker does. He poisons the previous commissioner by poisoning his alcohol. He blows up the judge in her car, and then the Joker cards fly everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And it's like, and to your point, I think he's actually testing the Batman to say, how much can I do to him not to kill me? Because like, remember, he then blows up a hospital.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. Like,
and then the thing with the boats at the end.
He also kills like Batman's ex-lover and very good friend Rachel in the film. He blows her up.
Though? I thought that was the mob, though. To be honest,
no. They kidnapped her.
Oh, but he was the one who set up. So
the policemen who were crooked because she went under police custody, and so did Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
So they gave up her location and gave her to the mobsters, who then gave her to the Joker. And then that's why when Harvey Dent has the conversation with the Joker, he doesn't kill the Joker because he's like, you know who I am. I didn't betray and get Rachel killed. He basically said that
I'm just a dog chasing cars.
He's like, basically, I am a killer, and whoever's brought in front of me, I will kill. The persons who betrayed her are the ones who literally killed her.
Yeah, and he has such a good way of twisting that logic in that scene. And that is a great scene when Rachel and Harvey are tied to those bombs. And Batman gets tricked by the Joker into rescuing Harvey rather than her. And that's, she gets blown. You think she's going to be rescued, and then she gets blown up.
Especially the way that Christopher Nolan did it was amazing. Like, she's singing the song.
So powerful.
Because usually it's like at the end of the song, she blows up. It's like, she begins, then bam.
Yeah.
It's like no one expected it.
Straight in your face, and then Harvey Dent with his face just burning up.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then the coin he has as well, like, I create my own luck, and it's just a two-headed coin because he's a cheeky little snake.
Yeah. And he was like, especially to the guy when they wanted to find out like where the Joker was, and he was like beating this person up and was like, oh yeah, I was going to throw him off the roof if it landed on tails. And he was like, so you put his life to chance? He said, no, this is a two-headed coin.
No, that's when Batman has one of the Italian mobsters, and he's trying to find out who the Joker is. You're thinking of when Harvey Dent, so when the police commissioner's dead and they have his big funeral parade through town, which is also, again, another
That was an amazing scene. Yeah.
Harvey Dent captures one of them and like is basically trying to get him to squeal, but he's never actually going to shoot him because the coin's two-sided.
It's two-headed,
But it does show you that Harvey Dent's got a bit of a weird side to him already, and when he loses Rachel and gets half his face burnt off, like it just comes out, and amazing. I love seeing that Gotham's white night and a transition into darkness, and that's why it's so good, this movie, because you see such horrible dark things going on, the corruption, and there's even a scene where it's like when Joker reveals to Commissioner Gordon like, oh, but did Harvey Dent not make it back tonight? Oh no, does it depress you, Commissioner, to feel how alone you really are? Because he knew that it's policemen that were looking after Harvey and Rachel. So it just reveals how much corruption there is still in the city, despite how much they've done against the mob. There's still so much corruption. Like, amazing. Yeah. And like scene after scene in this movie, like the parade scene's great. When Batman's like basically interviewing the Joker, like, where are they?
Yes.
Where are they? Yeah. I saw a great parody video online. It's like, why are you want to kill me, Joker? And the Joker's like, what? It's like, why are you? He's like, I can't hear you. Maybe that's why it's so difficult.
And I think also, like, we also forget like how many great scenes in the film for the Joker and for Batman. Batman going out to Hong Kong, where he literally jumps out the plane and then has a parachute, gets re-caught by the plane and takes that guy with him.
I don't know. I think that's one of my few criticisms of The Dark Knight. I thought that was a little bit silly that Batman's now international, as in Hong Kong, like, criminals everywhere, better watch out. Just like roadmen in Tottenham, just like, oh, I'm not going out tonight. So that would
be a very, very clever ploy. Oh, he was in Hong Kong. He's coming to London next.
Yeah, there is no escape from Batman. Yeah, what else was a really cool scene?
The scene when the Joker was trying to get Harvey Dent.
Which scene?
Oh yeah, remember, because they were Remember, the one thing I do like about the film, there's multiple storylines. You had like the storyline of like the fall of Harvey Dent. You had the Joker and his rise to power, the fall of the mob. And there was also the storyline of like, who is Batman? And remember, the Joker said, I'm going to kill X amount of people until Batman comes out and tells me who it is. And he ends up starting to like kill people one by one by one by one by one. And then Bruce Wayne is about to say he's Batman. Remember, it was at a conference. Then Harvey Dent just walks up and says, I'm Batman. Remember that bit? And then they then have to like take him into...
he's like, take the Batman into custody. And everyone's just like, what is Batman here? And Harvey Dent just goes, I'm Batman. And then okay, cool. Convenient.
And like the fact that they have to take him into custody and that the Joker's trying to get him.
Yeah,
and
they
use that as a ploy to then capture the Joker.
Yeah, especially with Gordon, because you think he's dead by that point because he took a bullet to try and save the mayor at the parade.
And then also like the employee of Batman, who then was going on a talk show to say that Bruce Wayne was Batman, and then the Joker said, only I'm allowed to know who Batman is, and then threatened his life and said, I'm going to...
damn right. You know, I actually was on the Joker's side in that second.
He was like, I'm going to blow up I think he said a hospital for each hour this man is still alive.
I'm damn right. That guy's a little piece of crap, you know?
So literally...
Snitch.
So literally in that scene, Bruce Wayne saves his life by crashing, I think, his Lambo into the police vehicle. And
he pretends he's just trying to catch the light. Yeah, Gordon's
and then he gives the guy the look, and the guy's like, oh my days, my life's just been saved.
Yeah, exactly. By the man I was trying to expose. Yeah, I love it when he goes to Fox and says, I've worked out who Batman is. I want $10 million every year for the rest of my life. And Fox just it's like, so you're telling me that your boss is secretly a masked vigilante who every night beats criminals to a pulp with his bare hands, and your plan is to blackmail this person? Good luck.
Because blackmail is also a crime. Like, if I can I get on the record, please?
Yeah. Did you? Here's a question for you. Did you think that guy? I can't remember his name. I think it was Reese something. Do you think he was the Riddler? Because I think his name isn't the same, because the Riddler's called Edward something, right? I can't remember his surname. But to me, I thought he was the Riddler because the Riddler knows who Batman was. He wasn't an ex-Wayne Industries employee. So I think it all kind of points towards him being the Riddler, but it's just something they never continued into the Dark Knight Rises. But to me, I felt like he was potentially the Riddler.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I did love about the film was that the Joker at the end is trying to say, Batman, the world is just as bad as I am.
Why souls?
Yeah. Like, why do you care about them so much? They're all as bad as me.
They'll cast you out like a leper.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the chips are down, society will throw you out.
Especially the whole boat scene where they're like, the guy like who takes who I think his name's Tiny Lester, who's in the film Friday as well, and has been in other films. Like literally, he's like,
is that the criminal guy who
yeah,
takes the? Yeah,
he's like, give that to me, or I'll take it from your dead cold hands, and he throws it out the window.
I'll do something you should have done out. And then on the other boat, you got all the civilians who are like, no, they had that chance. We're righteous, good people, and then but then they don't. They don't.
And if they'd done it, they would have killed themselves, not the other side, not the other ship.
Oh, it's actually rigged to blow up both.
Yeah, no, it was rigged to blow up their own ship.
Lol.
So that's the whole thing. So because like he was like,
Why so serious?
I want to show them so badly. So then the other side thinks that they blew it up. Like imagine, right? The prisoners don't, but then the other ship press it. They blow themselves up. Everyone will be like, oh, look at these prisoners. They've just killed these innocent people.
Yeah, and that's it. Because the Joker wants to prove a point to society.
Yeah, and then the fact that he's like, you can't rely on anybody, and it's like. He then tries to press the button, and that's his fight with Batman.
Yeah, and it's very clear that the Joker. I mean, the League of Shadows seem like it's hard to describe him, but the Joker is basically a terrorist, really, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Like a psychologist, because he brings. I love the sense of terror he brings to Gotham just by what he does and all his actions. People are so afraid of him and what he'll do because he's so unpredictable. The League of Shadows, I guess, are also terrorists as well. It's funny because Batman fights crime, but really he's fighting terrorists actually, when you think about it.
Because if you think about Bane is literally, they took and blew up a plane and literally held everyone hostage with a nuclear warhead.
Exactly, and Joker's the same, really. And, going back to the Joker, like, some great moments, like, want to know how I got these scars?
Yeah.
So he comes up to me with a knife and says, why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face.
And then the story about the fact that when he was married to his wife, and then she was always upset, and then she always was never happy. And then at the end, when he's like, "Do you know how I got these scars?" And Batman's like, "No, but I know how you got these."
Yeah, exactly. That was like touche, Batman. You sat screen. Well done.
And I think to your point, like that. I think for a very long time was and I think still is like on my top 10 list of films all time, because like the amount of things that happen in the film, it's a good film when loads of major stuff happen that are awesome that you make you forget the other stuff. Like I always
iconic.
Like remember when he puts the phone inside that guy. And everyone thinks he's crazy. He's like, oh, the vibrations, the signals. Then he starts singing, and they're like, what is up with this guy? And they're like, shut up. And then boom. And then that's how the Joker escapes. Like,
I just want to make my phone call. Like, he takes he manages to basically somehow get a hold of one of the police officers, gets a knife to his throat, and like gets the others. They're like, what you want? What do you want? It's like, I just want to make my phone call. Like, honestly, Heath Ledger's the Joker dominates every single scene in that. And we'll come back to that in a minute. I just want to go through some other great moments. So, obviously, a big part of this is the moral. You die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that's pretty much what happens with the Batman in it, because he has to take... Well, at least on the surface, he has to take the fall for everything that Harvey Dent has done, because... he can't allow all the criminals he locked up to be unwound. And this is what Bane eventually picks up on. Some other stuff. So when Rachel dies, then this is interesting because I rewatched Batman Begins and The Dark Knight in the same week. Interesting parallel they did here. Great cinematography and storytelling. So Rachel's death, Bruce Wayne is sitting in like, with his Batman helmet off, just sitting in his Batsuit, staring out his penthouse window, just like, in utter distress and just distraught of what's happened. Alfred comes up to him and says, I thought I'd prepare a bit of breakfast. If you watch Batman Begins, after Bruce Wayne's parents dies when he's still a kid, exact same scene. Not the same saying, but Bruce is doing the same thing. Alfred comes up to him and says, I thought I'd prepare a bit of lunch. Like, amazing. That's one detail I never noticed, actually, until I rewatched both of them this week. And I think that's such good storytelling because he's just lost so much. He has all this money as well, but everything gets taken away from his parents, his crush. I mean, holy cow, Rachel, man. Like, she just keeps leading. No, it doesn't. She's quite clear, really, that first of all, it's like she doesn't like that he's a bit of a spoiled brat, but she does kind of like him as well. Batman Begins. Then when he reveals to her that he's Batman, she kisses him, but says, but Bruce, this isn't you. your mask is you, Batman is you, and when you finally put that down, I'll be there for you as your lover. And then even in this one, he says, remember you told me that when time's done, Batman's down, you'd be there for me. And I think Harvey Dent's that best chance. You know, he's the white knight that I can never be as Batman, you know, etc. Yeah. And she's like, oh, Bruce, you can't make me choose. And she's like, she wants to marry Harvey Dent. And I'm like, oh, no. And the best bit about that scene when Alfred comes to him is Rachel had written a little letter saying that she's going to marry Harvey Dent, but she'll always be there for Bruce as a friend, but basically just turning his crush down. Alfred had that with that breakfast tray with all the food. I thought I'd prepare a bit of breakfast. He's about to give it to Batman, and then he takes it away at the last moment, so Bruce never knows that Rachel would have, because his soul was crushed in that moment after she died. Although maybe he would have felt better, like knowing that, oh, well, she wouldn't love me anyway. Cool. Goodbye, Rachel. But wow, great scene.
And I think also, like, just with the film, the fact that it seems like the Joker was after Harvey Dent the whole time. He wasn't after
to corrupt him.
To corrupt him. And because Harvey Dent was the city. He was the white knight the city needed. And Batman was the one in the shadows keeping them safe. And he's like, what can I do to bring the city down than to turn that white knight into a villain?
Well, yeah, essentially taking down Batman if they killed him, but then, you know, people were emboldened in this, and that was the whole idea that, you know, before that, these cops and lawyers wouldn't dare oppose anyone. And this is what the Joker says in the group therapy session. You know, he meets the mobsters in the kitchen. It's like, before this, all these cops and lawyers wouldn't dare oppose you. What happened? Did your balls drop or something?
like the fact that you're having your therapy sessions therapy sessions during the day because you're too scared to have it at night.
Yeah. I mean, Heath Ledger's acting amazing, but also the dialogue. He just owns every scene. Like, even when he's walking out there and all the mobsters about to take him down, he just has all these bombs strapped to his jacket. He's like, let's not blow things out of proportion. So good. Some other stuff as well. So, you know, when as you said earlier, the Joker has one of those phony fake Batmans, the vigilante Batmans. You know, I'm not wearing hockey pants. He has that video of him, and he's like, he's really messed up. That was actually improvised by Heath Ledger, that scene. Like, he directed the footage on camera, completely improvised. Like, wow, really cool. Came across as really well. But I think one of the best quotes that sums up the Joker, and just because it's escalation in this, isn't it? Because that's how Batman Begins ends. You know, like Batman's talking to Gordon.
And he's like, I heard this guy, and this is the calling card that he leaves behind. Yeah,
exactly. But he says, what about escalation? Batman's like, what do you mean escalation? He's like, when we get semi-automatics, the mob get automatics. When we wear Kevlar armor, they buy bullet armor-piercing bullets. And when they see you, a man in a mask, taking down criminals at night, what's going to happen next? And this is it. This is the escalation. The Joker is the ultimate. Batman's the ultimate force of order. The Joker's the ultimate force of anarchy. Yeah,
full-on chaos.
And Alfred's speech is like when Batman's like, he says to him, I'm trying to work out his motivation. Everyone's got a motivation, Alfred. It just takes some time to work out. It's like, Alfred, blah, blah, blah. Some men aren't looking for anything logical like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And I was like, damn, that's a quote of the century. Like, that sums up the Joker so much. He really is just pure chaos. So we need to talk about production of The Dark Knight. Obviously, we could be frothing over it for ages, just how much we love it. Yeah. So essentially Nolan and David Goyer sought to continue the sense of dark realism that's captivated audience from Batman Begins. And then originally, oddly enough, there was criticism over Heath Ledger's casting as the Joker initially when it was announced on social media. A lot of people, like, they'd seen him in A Knight's Tale. Yeah, that was just a great movie. They'd seen him in...
What's that? 20 Things I Hate About You, which is another great film. Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't really think someone like that.
Brokeback Mountain as well.
Yeah, Brokeback Mountain. Yeah, you wouldn't really think someone who plays sort of, you know, somewhat comedic roles or roles of drama. Yeah. But he aced it. But like the whole look of the Joker as well, compared to say the previous ones, like Jack Nicholson's one. Less camp, more like disturbing, like the dark, the greasy green hair that's just dirty, the suit, the really scary, creepy looking makeup, the scars. Amazing.
And I think one thing I did like about his makeup was as if like it had worn off. And like he just chose not to replace it. Like all other Jokers, it's like full on makeup.
Perfectly done.
And I think one thing that the Joker had done, well, not including the Jared Leto Joker that's in the Suicide Squad, the first Suicide Squad, not the remake, is that he always wants to look nice. Like he has to look perfect. That like if you see like with Jack Nicholson's Joker or the one that Mark Hamill does in the animated TV series, he's always like in a suit, fully covered face with a smile and a bow tie, and you're like, this guy's crazy, but he always wants to look nice. But it seemed like with Heath Ledger's Joker, it was like, no, I'm here for chaos, and I don't care what I look like. Yeah,
exactly. And it was very different, less molded and perfected. This was just like he was, chaos. And you know, funny enough, Heath Ledger was actually originally approached to play Batman - Bruce Wayne in Batman Begins, but he refused. So how weird that could have been. They could have had someone else playing the Joker.
Yeah.
And you know, you got to hear the story of how actually Heath Ledger created the Joker. So he locked himself in a hotel room in London and this is through his own confession. He locked himself in a hotel room in London for a month to develop his interpretation of Joker. He, quote, I sat around in a hotel room in London for about a month, locked myself away, formed a little diary and experimented with voices and laughs. It was important to try and find a somewhat iconic voice and laugh. I ended up landing more in the realm of a psychopath, someone with very little to no conscience towards his acts. And boy, did he pull that off so well. And in some ways, people think that's kind of what could have led to, unfortunately, Heath Ledger's death from albeit an accidental drugs overdose in January 2008, but he was confessing before that he was feeling quite unwell mentally. Before that, and apparently Jack Nicholson come out and said, you know, by playing even the Joker when he did in the Tim Burton movie, that he said he felt psychologically was a bit affected by being a method actor and getting into that role. And essentially, that's kind of what was going on with Heath Ledger. He's really method acting. I mean, isolating yourself for 1 month in a hotel room in London. This isn't a lockdown, quarantine hotel room. This is by your own choice. And I mean, he created something amazing, but I wonder at what cost.
Yeah, and I think that's why some people in Hollywood are like, we don't want method acting. Because then, for him, it kind of sometimes the person then takes on the persona and the energy that person carries. So probably that's what Jack Nicholson was feeling like. If you play someone, like sometimes when we're not feeling well mentally or physically, we pretend that we're fine. We pretend that we're well. So that's us acting to the world.
Yeah.
But then like if, for example, you're having like a small hard time, like maybe potentially you had an argument with someone in your family or you're going through something, but then taking on the persona of someone who is mentally ill and going through that could then just make it worse. And that's why like a lot of actors are like, we don't believe in method acting, because you then also then put on the persona and take on the problems, because at times you're trying to trick yourself that you are said character.
Yeah. You draw on memories and stuff from your own personal experiences, and that can sometimes make some weird creations in your head. Yeah, and it was such a loss, because even in his other movies, Heath Ledger, I mean, he's just great. Knight's Tale, love him. But that's it. People were he was criticized when it was first announced that he'd play the Joker, because people thought, you know, some of the roles he's been in doesn't seem right. But this shows you what a good actor can be. They can play a variety of roles. They don't just typecast themselves. You know, I'm not saying that's necessarily that you're a bad actor, but such a big variety and field you can go through. And he did receive an Oscar, BAFTA, and Golden Globe how do you say it? Posthumously?
I have no clue how to say that.
Basically, the word that when you receive an award after you die, he got that afterwards. And yeah, damn right he deserved it. I think he absolutely smashed it as the Joker.
Yeah, and I think also he left like a mark on a generation of like what a villain's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like for people who didn't grow up with like Apocalypse Now, with Marlon Brando's evil villain character, or some of the greatest evil villains like Ralph Fiennes in Schindler's List.
Yeah.
For our generation, where we didn't see the great villains of the 80s, 70s, 60s, then
Well, you got Thanos.
We did.
Perfectly bad. I don't know. For me, Thanos is more of a meme though, for some reason.
But then we did actually get like, this is what a villain is, and this is what pure evil looks like. Because like for us, like we didn't really like. I watched like Schindler's List later, and then also I watched like Apocalypse Now as an adult. But like when it fully came out, and you saw like Marlon Brando's character and him being a straight on villain there, like when you watch it the first time, you then probably see like that's what a great performance. I think he got an Oscar for it, or was nominated for an Oscar, Marlon Brando for that character.
Yeah, and there's also, if you know the story about the filming for Apocalypse Now, like it's just like an apocalypse. Like Marlon Brando had like a heart attack on set, or someone did. There were so many issues of like sanitary and like staff complaints. Like apparently it's a nightmare to film. But yeah, we should definitely get onto that as an episode at some point. So let's go on to before we go on to the reception soundtrack. I mean, Hans Zimmer
is a god.
But it's Hans Zimmer and someone else. It's not just Hans Zimmer. We do need to give credit where credit's due. Mm-hmm. It was I had it here. James Howard Newton and Hans Zimmer. So it's not just all Hans Zimmer, by the way, guys, but let's be honest, Hans Zimmer's a legend. But amazing. And the way it's changed from Batman Begins, there's sort of like longed out, like you can hear that.
Let's put a smile on that face.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you don't hear as much there, to be honest. And I don't think I was just going to be able to hear that soundbite. But they're like it sounds unhinged, just like the Joker. The transition of, it's not just the darkness of Batman Begins, but it's also got that unhingedness of the Joker just slowly creeping in. Like,
yeah, and like especially at the scene when they have, I think it was like a charity event where he barges in and then starts robbing them. And like, just before he comes in, the music then starts, then bam.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I really loved about like Hans Zimmer, and also like other, well, what do they call it? The musicians, and also what is Hans Zimmer actually? His actual composer. Thank you. Composers that are like him, that they kind of set the scene from the music. Like at times when you hear dun 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 dun,
yeah,
you hear that, but you don't see any orcs. Be like, oh my days, they need to be ready. The orcs are coming.
Yeah.
Or like in Star Wars when you hear dun dun dun. Anytime before you see Vader turn up at all, you hear that music. You know that
it's
something bad's going to happen,
isn't it? Yeah. The music is the scene. You know. Yeah. I wonder if the music came out and we hadn't seen these scenes, what we'd imagine in our own heads. And I feel like it wouldn't be far off. Like, come on, a Lord of the Rings one, like A Knife in the Dark. The feeling of dread you get from that, you'd at least vision in your head some monster coming after you. And I guess that's what happens in Lord of the Rings with the ring wraiths. Anyways, we should move on, because otherwise we'll be talking about the Dark Knight and forget our Dark Knight Rises. But reception. So, Rotten Tomatoes, critics' consensus, what do you think it was?
95.
Oh, you were close, man. 94%. 94%. But yeah, amazing. What do you think the audience score was?
98 or 99?
Funny enough, 94%
94,
as well.
Okay.
But, I mean, to be honest, I would say this deserves like 100%. There's very few movies on Rotten Tomatoes that do. I can't remember what ones have that.
Toy Story 2 had 99%. I always remember that one, because it's like, it's on a very short list. So like, you've got Toy Story 2, you've got Shrek 2,
of course, Shrek 2.
You've got like Empire Strikes Back, and you've got Return of the King, and Godfather Part 2 are the list of films where the sequel is much better than the original, and critics and fans both loved the sequel more than the original. Yeah,
exactly. And I think Batman Begins is amazing, but The Dark Knight kind of outshines it, just because it was so amazing. And speaking of The Godfather, at one point The Dark Knight was described as the Godfather of superhero movies, and I totally agree with that.
Yes,
and the Rotten Tomatoes describes The Dark Knight as dark, complex, and unforgettable. The Dark Knight succeeds not just as an entertaining comic book film, but as a richly filling crime saga. And since its release, The Dark Knight has been assessed as one of the biggest superhero movies ever made, one of the best movies of 2000, and one of the best films ever made. It's even been entered into the US Library of Congress, which is just like, wow.
Because like other films are like Jaws, just because of like the cinematography, the music behind it.
Yeah.
I think John Williams does Jaws, the person who did it for Indiana Jones and also
Star
Wars.
Legend.
He did it for Jaws.
Yeah.
I think Terminator's there as well, just because the message, and also it's like a film that no one had seen like it. I think Alien is in the archive as well. E.T. is another one.
Yeah, just the iconic,
really
iconic
The
ones,
Matrix and The Godfather are also in there as well. So to be up there, you have to...
Shrek 2's in there?
No.
If it's not, it should be.
Yeah, like to be up to that level, because the way that I was reading up on it is like they take films that say, okay, then that capsulate that time period in history. So like in 200 years time, someone will be like, okay, then why did they put the Terminator in? And then when you watch it, you're like, okay, then I understand. Or the Matrix, or having the Godfather in, or having Jaws in, or E.T.
Yeah, I hope they'll still appreciate it. And with, you know, in 200 years time, probably 4-dimensional movies where you are in the movie.
Yeah, and you're playing the main character.
Yeah. Why so serious? I don't mind. I'll happily play the Joker. I wish I had the long hair for it. So let's move on to The Dark Knight Rises. It does not matter who we are. All that matters is our plan. And like, Dark Knight Rises, pretty good, but I just don't think you could ever top The Dark Knight, to be honest. But so it premiered in 2012, and Christopher Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan, actually co-wrote the script with him, funny enough, which is cute, getting your little brother on, or older, I don't know. And then the story was mainly done by David Goyer, once again. So the story is, it's set 8 years after the death of Harvey Dent. Batman's basically battling his own mortality and his inability to like physically continue as the Batman, but also the fact that, you know, the Dark Knight ends with him being hunted by law enforcement and cast out as an outlaw rather than, you know, a tolerated vigilante. And eventually he's confronted by Bane, who is an excommunicated member of the League of Shadows, and secretly in cahoots with Talia al Ghul, who is Ra's al Ghul's daughter.
Yeah.
And yeah, very cool. Like, sort of, if the Joker was a psychological terrorist, I think Bane's a full-on anarchist. Sort of his whole philosophy of, we have taken Gotham and given it to you, the people. Like, he's amazing. I like very cool bad guy. The Joker was amazing. I don't think if you could put them next to each other, you can't really compare, because the Joker is just fantastic. But even still, what was the Tom Hardy as Bane? Considering he was just wearing a mask the whole time and acting with his eyes, he pulled it off so well. Like, and some of the quotes as well. That's not him. Yeah, oh, it's gone. Oh, okay.
Speak of the devil.
There we go.
And he shall appear.
Yeah, and like when he confronts Batman as well, like Batman's saying to Catwoman, she's kind of tricked him, is like, you made a big mistake. And he's like, not as grave as yours, I fear. Let's not stand on ceremony here, Master Wayne. Like, so cool. I got me. I did find him a little hard to understand first time I watched the movie, but after watching it many times afterwards, yeah, he's easy to understand.
And I think with the film that they did really good justice is that Bane is very intelligent. And
yeah, he's not just muscle.
And at times, like, they think, oh, well, we need to have something similar to the Hulk, because the Hulk is seen as being dumber, especially in being big and strong. But no, Bane is actually very intelligent. And and even in like the comic books, he is actually a very intelligent
Oh, really?
guy.
Okay, I thought, because I guess I only think of Bane and Batman and Robin, which just shows him as a dumb brute.
Yeah. Who's doing the bidding for Poison Ivy.
Yeah.
But he's actually a very intelligent villain. And like even his like backstory on one of the comics is like awful. It's like his father in the country he's from, his father committed a crime, and then because either his father died committing it, they then passed the sentence on to him.
Oh,
so
right.
Even when he was unborn, the sentence was passed on to him. So that he was then put in like prison from a child, and then was tested on to then become Bane. And that was his life story, that literally his father had effed up, and then he basically had to then take the punishment of his father.
That's kind of weird, actually, because in The Dark Knight Rises, at first it seems that, they're talking about the child of Ra's al Ghul. You thought that was Bane.
Yeah.
Because the child was put in that pit in the ground, that prison, for some reason along those lines, but it actually turns out to be Talia al Ghul. So they kind of took that story a bit from the lore.
Yeah.
But then they just gaslighted you with it in The Dark Knight Rises. Sorry, and what were you saying? So when he breaks out of prison or something?
So then, like, for his character, I think one thing they really do well is that, like, he's not, like, unlike most of, like, Batman's villains, he's not crazy. He's more of, like...
he's pretty stimmed up, though.
He is. He's like, I've suffered. And, like, I know, basically, similar to the character in the film, it's like, I've suffered. I know what the world is really like. And there's a need for change type of thing. And, like, one thing I really did love about the film is that there actually is a comic book where Batman is fighting Bane, and Bane actually breaks his back.
Yeah,
and they actually included that into the film, which was really nice.
Yeah, that's a good tribute to the lore. Although I've got to admit, as realistic as Batman is, if you break your back, I don't know many people that can recover that. Like literally, you've broken your spine. Although it's not made completely clear whether his spine's broken. Or maybe it is. Because, in the prison, when Batman's cast into that prison by Bane after breaking his back, it's like, when Gotham is ashes, then you'll have my permission to die. And that doctor literally fixes Bane, so he fixes Batman's back by just kicking it in. Like, what kind of doctor's that? By the way, the guy who plays that doctor plays Albert Einstein in Oppenheimer.
Oh.
Yeah, cool actor. But yeah, I did think that was a bit... I mean, how could they make it realistic that Bane breaks his back and Batman recovers? I mean, this is a superhero movie after all. I think, considering how well they've sort of handled the realism element of it so far, I think they've allowed that one in this. Yeah, and I thought Bane, great bad guy. Like, he is the physical match for Batman, but unlike in the comic books, they make it realistic. He's not stimmed up. He's not a drugged up nutter, unless whatever that thing that goes through his mask suppresses the pain. But he's not like a stimmed up person who's super bulky and hench. Yeah. And funny enough, Tom Hardy's actually shorter than Batman. Yeah. So in the production, they made him wear like really thick boots just to make him a bit more taller and intimidating. But he's like proper scared. Those eyes are so good. And we can't forget about, some of the other characters. Like, guess who's back? It's Scarecrow. And I love it when he's hosting that court. It's death by exile to like Gordon and stuff. Very cool. You have Catwoman as well. I thought Catwoman was cool, but I thought it's just a bit of like, again, it's like when they're just throwing villains or characters, and it just felt like kind of a side note.
I think the issue with like the Dark Knight Rises was that Warner Brothers and DC Comics wanted the film to like be a start of something. So like the Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character.
Yeah, Robin, yeah.
He was supposed to play a Robin, but Christian Bale was like, I don't want to be in a Batman where there's a Robin. That's what was rumored.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
It kind of felt like the film, or potentially that Joseph Gordon-Levitt would take over as like Nightwing, which is like a grown-up...
who is Nightwing?
Nightwing is a grown-up Robin who then takes over like kind of like the mantle from Batman.
Right, okay.
And I think that's what some fans thought that was going to happen. But I think Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale were like, no, we don't really see like going in that direction. Because I think at that time, like Marvel were coming in with their expanded universe. They had just done, the first Avengers came out in 2011, the first Avengers film. So then I think fans were clamoring about, what is DC going to do? So I think like Warner Brothers and DC were like, maybe what we can do is we can develop a world around the Dark Knight. And I think Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale were like, no, we don't think that's just going to ruin the franchise.
Yeah, I could kind of see what they're coming from, because it's like the more and more you do, it's like with squash or cordial, you put some into juice, the more and more water you put in, the more and more it dilutes the sweetness until it's basically just like flavored water. And I think, that's what's happened in Marvel, because the first few movies of Marvel were amazing, like Thor, Captain America: Winter Soldier. Oh, sorry, Captain America. What was the first Captain America?
Captain America: The First Avenger.
The First Avenger. That's it. Iron Man, etc. Really good, but the more I'm really tired of like at least Marvel style superhero movies, and to be honest, the DC ones are pretty crap. Apart from the Dark Knight series, wow, and the Batman as well. The recent one was pretty good. And I think if they expanded out Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy a bit more, don't know, it could have. Because they peaked. They peaked too early, man. The Dark Knight was just too good. And The Dark Knight Rises is a good movie, but it has the issue of just being juxtaposed against The Godfather of superhero movies.
Yeah, it's kind of like linking back to The Godfather. Like The Godfather 2, Godfather 3 was a pretty good film, but it just wasn't Godfather 2. And I think that's the knock that a lot of people have.
It just felt unnecessary. Yeah.
And I think also the sad thing about like The Dark Knight is that the main component to continue that storyline unfortunately passed away with Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And like there were even rumors, I think, especially because this was like the inception of like social media and people on YouTube saying rumors here, left, right, and everywhere, was potentially that you know the actress who plays Veronica Mars? I forgot what her name is. I think it's Kristen Bell. She was gonna play what's her name again? Harley Quinn.
Oh, right.
And potentially David Tennant would play the Riddler. Like there were rumors around
David
about
Tennant
that.
would make a good Riddler.
And that there would then be a three-pronged with then Heath Ledger as the Joker, and then you would have then Harley Quinn, and then you'd also have the Riddler all in the city.
Yeah.
But then unfortunately with like Heath Ledger's passing, they had to like rewrite everything. And I think they had to write it in a way that they also, one, had to give it time, so they didn't, as if they were like moving on too quickly.
Yeah.
And also didn't want to like bring up, that's why there's like rarely ever mention of the Joker at all in the actual film, because they're trying to move away from it. And I think that's the sadness of it. Like, unfortunately with his passing, that they kind of then left they weren't able to then reach the full potential of the series.
I guess so, but from what I sort of understood from it, like just from my research, so actually Nolan was quite reluctant to return for a third installment, but he agreed anyway just to sort of give the series a conclusion. But maybe that's part of the reason why he was reluctant to return, because, you know, The Dark Knight was such a great peak of a movie, but also on top of that, having, you know, Heath Ledger's death, it would, all the sort of plans they had to maybe develop that further have been ruined, because the Joker doesn't actually die in The Dark Knight. He's probably somewhere in Arkham Asylum or something. So they could have continued it, but it just wouldn't be right to get a new actor in. And I think Heath Ledger's last movie, was it the Fantastic Imaginorium of
something Emporium?
Emporium. They got someone else to, I can't remember, was it? Who plays Captain Jack Sparrow? Have I forgotten his name?
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. I think they got Johnny Depp to step in to finish, because that's technically Heath Ledger's last movie, but he died like halfway through filming or something. So they got him to finish it off. And then, you know, there's a lot of issues now with CGIing people's faces. Like, you know, Grand Moff Tarkin and
Rogue One.
Rogue One, and then Princess Leia and Rogue One, and also partly in some of the sequels as well. The Rise of Skywalker, exactly. It does raise a lot of moral quandaries. Like, is that okay to use an actor's face in that way after their past? But yeah, it does leave it on a weird situation. But anyway, go back to production. So it did, feel like The Dark Knight was somewhat of a cliffhanger. So you see why Nolan came back. So Nolan drew his inspiration from Bane's comic view debut in the 1993 Nightfall storyline, this 1986 series The Dark Knight Returns, and the 1999 storyline No Man's Land. It was shot using IMAX 70mm film for many parts of the movie, so a very crisp quality you might notice in some of the scenes. There's some vehicle variations in it, so you got the Bat plane and Batcopter termed the Bat, an underground prison set that was very cool, and a new Batcave set were created specifically for the movie. Like, they really did some design into some of the scenes and areas. Like, for example, the underground prison set as well. I guess that was Blackgate prison, but also like where Bane and his army were hiding.
Yeah.
Like very cool. Very
especially
cool.
like when they come through the ground at the football in the American football stadium.
Yeah,
and the guy like scores a touchdown. Looks like, and he's like, well, where the hell's the rest of the pitch?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, damn, that was a good touchdown there. Yeah, that was very cool. And like Bane does that big announcement. Like, wow, so cool. You should watch on YouTube. Someone's done a rap of Bane getting an announcement like, DJ, drop me a beat. I'm Bane. Bane is the game. It's so funny. But yeah, I mean, the good thing about Bane is you can dub his voice in so many scenes. Like, because, you know, you don't see his lips move or anything. So there's one thing like, they say, you are what you eat. It's so good. And, you know, box office for The Dark Knight. Right? Did I say the box office for The Dark Knight?
No, but I think it got almost 800 or 900 million.
Oh, no, more than that.
Wow.
So box office so going back to The Dark Knight was 1.006, so just over $1 billion was box office. Budget was only 185 million. And for example, like Avatar was about 250 million budget, maybe 300 million, and its box office was over $1 billion. So good value for money. You know, Dark Knight kicked butt. And then the box office for The Dark Knight Rises was. So box office was 1.08 billion, so still doing good, but the budget was 250 to 300 million roughly. So it's still like cost them more to make, but I guess because, you know, they had like a flying bat pod, which sometimes is CGI'd.
And remember skydiving through the sky as well in the beginning of the
whole
film?
scene of the plane. Yeah, that is cool. Like, it's like, it does not matter who we are. All that matters is our plan. And then Littlefinger from Game of Thrones is in it. I was good shout. I think Game of Thrones had just started before that. Very cool scene now with the plane, but I just love Bane's quotes. Like, the guy's like, if I take off that mask, will it hurt? And he's like, oh no, so what was he says? He's like, if I take off that mask, will you be in great pain? Oh no, I can't remember. Oh God, I'm such a terrible Batman fan. It's like, and Bane's just like, for you, like as in it'll be painful for you. Or will it be pain? Yeah, he's like, if I take off that mask, will it be painful? And Bane's like, for you. Very cool.
And I think another scene I loved about the film was like when they attacked the Gotham Stock Exchange, which was the New York Stock Exchange, and like the guy was like to the policeman outside, he's like, you need to do something. Like he's like, this could ruin the economy. He's like, yeah, but my money's under my mattress. And
I don't trust that.
and I think like it's like another aspect to it. Like a normal person would be like, the stock exchange, who cares? Like my money's somewhere else. And I think one of the things that separates like Bane from the Joker was that the Joker was pure chaos, while it seemed like Bane had this ideology of let's try and give things to the people.
Yeah, anarchism.
But then
really it's just.
But then you realize it was just literally he was just a puppet for Talia. For Talia. And he was just living out her plan.
Exactly, because he was in love with her and he's like friend zoned by her, which was so funny. Yeah. And you know what? Speaking of the attack on the Wall Street Stock Exchange, which is a cool scene, like we're going mobile. I think it was quite a timely theme because at that time you had the Occupy Wall Street movement going on as well as the Occupy London movement, and like a really big worldwide sense that Wall Street and the economic system was failing us. So don't know whether this came out just after that and they put that in the movie, this attack on Wall Street, but the whole idea of like anarchism and people finally throwing off these chains and stuff, it seemed quite timely for that era, again, sort of spirit of the times. And there's also, a lot that went on outside of this movie as well. So like, for example, in Aurora, there's a shooting in Aurora in the USA. There's a shooting that occurred at a screening of this movie. Very tragic. But I think the guy was like kind of dressed up as like a Joker character. Like he had dyed his hair like extremely orange, which is obviously not the Joker's hair, but quite like weird, something kind of grounded in reality. That whole sort of Joker thing, quite disturbing, and just makes you wonder how like people can be weirdly inspired in the wrong kind of ways by.
The person who shot Ronald Reagan.
Yeah,
he was watching Taxi, the film with Robert De Niro,
and the Catch in the Rye book as well. That was his inspiration, and really obsessed with Jodie Foster as well. Yeah,
because she's the child in the film, and in Taxi, and Robert De Niro is trying to kill a crooked politician. So he has it in his head that I'm going to save Jodie Foster from. I think he was from New York, I believe. So he tried to shoot either the governor or the senator for his state.
Yeah.
And then when he couldn't get any space, he found out that Ronald Reagan would be visiting. So he basically walked up to him and shot him in pure daylight. And I think the weird thing is always for me is how many, someone said by percentage of presidents, being a president of the United States is one of the most deadliest jobs, just because there's been 50 of them and 4 of them, I think there's been maybe 47
assassinations,
and 4 of them have been assassinated, and I think at least 6 of them have actually been shot.
Yeah, I suppose, and quite a few survived. One was Teddy Roosevelt. He's one of the few people that have been shot. He was supposed to be doing a speech, but then he went back on stage and finished his speech. He was a badass.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and even being a candidate JFK's brother, RFK, Robert Kennedy, got shot in his presidential campaign. They're very unlucky family, Kennedys. Quite a few of them. Another one died from a airplane depressurizing. Yeah, just crazy. Really unlucky.
And funny enough, I think Kennedy's grandson is running for president. He's running within the Democrats to try and be their candidate to go for president next year. Yeah.
Wow, there's man, he better wear so much body armor and not fly on any planes. That's all I'm saying.
Funny enough, one of the Kennedys is married to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. I can't remember her name, but I've been watching the Schwarzenegger documentary. It's really good. Yeah, interesting. He married into that family, and then he became
the governor.
Yeah. Links. Well, mind you, they're Democrats, but links or what? Mm-hmm.
And even if you think about it, which is weird, is that if you thought Mr. Universe from Austria in the 80s would be the governor of California. Who would have thought of that?
Could you imagine? Imagine if he was able to run for president, I think he would have got. Yeah. That's just so unbelievably crazy. But then Ronald Reagan was an actor back in his day, so it's not too crazy, but he wasn't Mr. Universe.
Yeah.
I am the president. I'm Mr. Universe. That'd be crazy.
The weird thing also about America is that they have this loophole to be president. You have to be a born American citizen.
Yeah.
So he could have if he was born American, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
He then became later, which then brings in the loophole for Boris Johnson because I think his mother's American, he was a born American citizen. And through Donald Trump, through his mother, is Scottish. So he is also a British citizen. So either of them could switch roles. Both of them, no longer being world leaders, could potentially legally switch roles. So Donald Trump could come here and try and join a party and go for prime minister.
No thanks.
And Boris Johnson can go to the United States and team up with a party and go for president, because there's nothing.
How about a magic trick?
This is a magic trick.
There's nothing in law, which is funny. There's no law saying the Prime Minister of Great Britain can't be the President of the United States.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think any country would accept them now, especially after Donald Trump's track record of breaking the law. But anyway, bringing it back to Batman. So what do you think the Rotten Tomatoes critics' consensus was for?
If they gave The Dark Knight 94, I would say Dark Knight Rises 90.
Close again, 88%. Actually, okay. You're always just 1 or 2%. You're actually quite close. Yeah, 88%, and the audience score was 90%.
Okay.
So there's still a lot of satisfaction with The Dark Knight Rises. It was by no means a disappointing movie. I thought it was good, it was great, but you just can't top The Dark Knight for so many reasons. Wow, so cool, and the soundtrack for it was appropriately epic. Whilst you had Batman Begins, which was the dark hero rise of Batman, and the sort of soundtrack reflects that. Whilst The Dark Knight, the soundtrack in it takes that but adds a really creepy Joker style, like unhinged element to it. Like, wow, amazing. Then Dark Knight Rises has that epic sort of battle of ages sound to it, with Bane being the ultimate physical nemesis for Batman.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And like one thing I did also look at was like the similarities between like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and also like Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
And there are kind of similarities between them. And I think after watching like the Heath Ledger Joker, then going back to watch Willem Dafoe's Goblin, and also from like the latest Spider-Man film, you see him again, you actually give more credit to the Green Goblin. Because like the way that Willem Dafoe plays him, he plays him really well. Especially the scenes in the mirror where he sees like he's talking to the goblin that's within him. And then my brother, we were watching it again. We're like, he could play an actual really good Gollum.
Yeah, or Joker. Yeah. It's quite underrated. I feel like those Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, I don't know, I didn't really think much of them, but I think the bad guys were pretty good. Like even Dr. Octopus,
who's a British actor as well.
Yeah, it's funny how he returns for I haven't seen the newest Spider-Man movies, but he returns for was it No Way Home, or the one, you know, where it's like all the different Spider-Man.
No Way Home.
Yeah, I do need to watch that.
You should watch it, because I think what they really do is they really do show off the villains and what you liked about them.
Yeah.
Because I think like one of the elements about the film, without providing any spoilers, is that Spider-Man thinks that he can save them.
What, the villains?
The villains, yeah. Because he's like, I think maybe from like him starting to grow up is him seeing that, okay, then I'm not just here to save the good guys, the good people, I'm also here to save everyone. So then he puts it upon himself that I can also save the villains. And then it's just then that reaction.
Good luck with that, mate. Yeah. Trying to save those that don't. Yeah, that's a tough cookie. Okay, some quick fire questions to finish things off. So out of all these movies, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises, which is your favorite? I feel like it's quite obvious.
Dark Knight.
Yeah, obviously, hands down. I totally agree with you 100%. What's your second favorite?
The Dark Knight Rises.
I would say Batman Begins, actually. Maybe it's because I've seen it recently and I haven't seen Dark Knight Rises recently, but I just felt like Batman Begins it's quite polished, you know. I think it was a really great way to start the franchise, especially after like Batman and Robin, which was just like the campest, silliest thing. Like even speaking of Arnold Schwarzenegger, him in it. Yeah. Like what was the quote? Like,
what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean it's kind of funny for that, to be fair.
And even on like Dr. Freeze. Dr. Freeze is a very intelligent scientist as well, whose intelligence.
And it wasn't a beefcake as well, like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And I think like what they did was like, you know what, we'll dumb down the villains and then just make them beefcakes. That's what they basically did.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, that's a lot of the issues with like previous Batman movies. They just, although, you know, say the Penguin with Danny DeVito, but I can't remember which one that was. Was that Tim Burton's one, maybe?
I think that was Tim Burton's one.
Yeah, that was really good. But I can't really remember much of them.
And then Jim Carrey with what's his name? As the Riddler, yeah. And it also had Two-Face. What's his name again? The actor
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah,
still pretty good, but I don't think it compares. Like, I actually really like the Two-Face in The Dark Knight. Like his transition, the way he just empathized with him so much. It's like, it's not what's right, it's what's fair. Like at the end, and he almost kills Jim Gordon's son. Yeah. Like it's just so tragic. Like I love it. Feels like a Greek tragedy, The Dark Knight, just how hard hitting it is.
Yeah.
Just for a superhero movie. Okay. How do you think the Batman, the most recent one with Robert Pattinson, measures up to these Batman movies?
I think it might sound a bit harsh, but I kind of feel like it's like kind of like a stepchild to it. Like the director basically was like, okay, then this worked. The gritty side of Batman, seeing Batman getting beaten up, seeing Batman struggle with the death of his parents, seeing Batman.
It's very emo, isn't it?
Yeah, it being a very dark film, and then also leading into more of like police corruption and someone trying to pinpoint and show like, this is the corruption that was in this city, and this city's done nothing to try and prevent it or to stop it. And I think one thing that I did like about the film was that it actually looked more into like the Bruce Wayne family, and like because like there is lore in the comic books about his family and that potentially
his dad not being such a good person,
and also the fact that his mother, I think her maiden name is Arkham, so the Arkham Asylum is from his mother's side of the family,
right?
And I believe that was used to either, I think his mother's sister
wasn't his mum supposed to be unhinged or something?
Yeah, I think she might have had some time in that asylum.
Yeah.
And it was asylum owned by the family. And like that's what I liked about the Batman, is it actually looked into the side of Batman that not a lot of people know about. Is like when people think about, his parents died, I think people think of like, Superman's parents dying or Uncle Ben dying for Spider-Man.
Not Uncle Ben, no.
Yeah, like it's like someone who's like idealistic that the person was a perfect person who then died. But then it was kind of like having like Robert Pattinson's Batman seeing that, wait, no, my father wasn't that much of a good guy. And then having to deal with that.
It's clear cut. Yeah. Because Batman Begins, they just come across as great, profound, loving, rich people that want to help society. But and the Batman, it's like he wanted to run for mayor and stuff and seemed like, I kind of like that. It wasn't quite, shades of grey rather than no one's good, no one's bad, people are somewhere in between. And like, loved the Penguin in it. I thought that was a great portrayal. They should have got Danny DeVito to come back again, because Danny DeVito is just an amazing actor, but still Colin Farrell did that very well. And I like the emo-ness of it. Like there's a scene where, because Batman's suit, but he has a black paint over his eyes to like, I don't know why, to go with the whole ethos and disguise. But then he takes it off and he's got Robert Pattinson just being a hot emo boy, and it's raining, it's just dripping black tears from his eyes. Like, this is so emo. I think they definitely caught on to what Christopher Nolan caught on to by this push into the dark realism that, to us, me and you say this about every show. It's like, we love it because it's dark, it's twisted, no one's a good guy, no one's a bad guy. They really took that on board with the Batman. I was glad to see it, but I don't think it'll ever be as memorable for me as the Dark Knight series. Maybe partly because the age I watch this, that there's something about watching shows when you're younger, nostalgia. But yeah, very good. Did find it funny how I was a 15, because literally at the cinema, I remember when I went to go see it, I just heard kids getting turned away because it's like, but, and they're like, no, sorry guys, it's a 15. I know it's Batman. It's like, well, come on, Harvey Two-Face in The Dark Knight, literally, I think that's pushing a 12A to the limits. Like the guy literally looks like a pepperami. Like, holy cow. There's definitely, I felt like if anything, The Dark Knight maybe should have been a 15. The Batman, I'm trying to remember what was 15 about it.
The rats, when they put the rats in. Remember the guy when they tie the thing and he has the rat's cage tied to his face?
Ooh, okay.
And then also,
I can't remember. I need to rewatch it.
You see also like someone I think someone who's running for mayor, he gets beaten to death. But you don't really actually see him get beaten, but it's more like what it implies.
The idea.
So sometimes, like with films, it's like when they say, it has violent themes, and also the language as well. And I think also like the themes that the woman was basically, the woman who gets murdered, who goes missing. Yeah. That she was basically being pimped out by someone. I think that element added to the 15 as well.
Oh, right.
Because I don't think like a parent would be like, my 12-year-old son is learning about what pimps do in Gotham. Like that type of thing. Yeah.
I mean, if DC Comics really want to get dark, they should really delve into like the true reality of crime.
Underbelly of Gotham.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they kind of avoided that. And even the Dark Knight series, they don't talk about sex worker trafficking and etc. If they really wanted to get into it, but that would probably be like, if they did an 18 of Batman, then I'm all up for watching that, because that would be the darkest of the dark. Like I think
that's the issue. Like I've said this like with Star Wars, and like Marvel has it as well, and so does DC. That they have comics which are just as bloody and gory as The Boys, or for example, another gory comic book which is like Hellboy as well. That's really gory. But I think it's like Warner Brothers and like Disney are like, we're not too sure people will be happy with this. And like Disney is like, okay, we can understand with Deadpool because that's his thing. But then people are like, yeah, but the Punisher, that's also his thing. Like Blade, that's also his thing. Wolverine, that's also Wolverine's thing as well. And I think that's what fans don't want to lose. Like, Batman's thing is that since like the 90s, his comics have been getting more and more violent to make it more realistic.
Yeah.
Because like, you get to a stage like just giving someone a punch in the face and then they just pass out, knocked out, or the fact that
they can take multiple punches in the face, or get shot in the arm and still fight on. Yeah,
or the fact that that all the villains want to do is rob banks is kind of getting old. Like, it gets to a stage you're like, how many banks can these guys rob? Like, what about the actual hard stuff that we know criminals would actually be doing?
Yeah, like hacking your cryptocurrency account.
Yeah.
That's not very sexy, but there's that element.
Some people have said, like, even with like Star Wars, like, slavery is a key point within the Star Wars universe. You see it with Princess Leia, you see it with Anakin as well, but they never really go into it or explain it.
And the sacred Jedi texts.
And it's like another thing, like the drug spice is also something that's constantly, as when we talk about like Dune, how they stole it from Dune and dumped it straight into Star Wars, and the fact that they talk about spice left, right, and center, but it's like no one talks about drug smuggling. They kind of talk about it in the third film.
Yeah, maybe it's too real for audiences, possibly.
But then I think that's the issue, is that when a generation grows up, like the stuff that they grew up with like the Phantom Menace and then the Clone Wars, they're now adults. You can't really convince them. They accept the plot holes because they were children, but they won't accept it as adults.
Exactly. My parents really didn't like episode 1 to 3, but I loved it, but watching episodes 7, 8, 9 now, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, I think they're garbage. But you got to wonder what if I was the same age.
I think some of the younger generation
really works for them,
and I think a lot of the younger generation really love Rey's character.
Right.
And I think the issue that we have is that, okay, so you've got something for the young, you've got something for the family, which is, for example, you have Mandalorian, because even though it seems more like of a darker show, it's still a family show.
Yeah.
And then so people are like, so right, when are we going to get a more adult version of like Star Wars? And like people have asked, like, when are we going to get more of a boys?
Andor was sort of getting there.
It was heading towards there, but then there's stuff that the Sith do that is completely X-rated. but then like there's some of the stuff that Sidious has done in the comics and in the books that if they showed in a film, you'd have to tag a 15 on it. But then people are asking, like, okay, then you keep telling us these Sith are this bad, but we never see this bad that they do.
Unlimited power!
And I think, like, they kind of feel like that with, like, comic books, and I really want them to do that and continue to do that with Batman, is that he has comic books which are of the dark nature.
Yeah.
And like, for example, like, with the Joker, with Joker on Phoenix, where they're now doing a 2, like, that was perfect because it was a 15 and it wasn't like trying to fit into the age group of like, oh, we're going to put a 12 on it.
Also, it's very real as well.
It was,
yeah. It wasn't camping anyway. It was very much there. I think the Dark Knight trilogy by Christopher Nolan has set a new precedent for a Batman series. I mean, excluding Dawn of Justice and even that was a little bit dark though for Batman because he was very
killing people as well.
Yeah. But they just didn't really delve into it because it was a terrible couple of movies.
And I think it was a very cool concept, but just terribly produced. Like Batman versus Superman would have been a good film if they had proper writers to write it out.
I actually kind of like the Batman in that, and the whole sort of grumpiness and sort of, he's very miserable. And the Joker was taunting him for the death of Robin and sort of the death of his parents and stuff. But they just didn't give it enough time. They just didn't give it the time of day, unfortunately, which is a shame.
And I think fans are starting to see now like how underrated like Henry Cavill was as Superman.
Yeah.
Like rewatching
Man of Steel.
Rewatching like Man of Steel and like rewatching, because I did watch the Thor film and I think Henry Cavill is in it.
What, in Thor?
Not Thor, the Flash film.
Oh, right.
And
I haven't seen it.
I kind of feel like I'm kind of a bit like pissed off. Like I actually would have loved to see Henry Cavill more as Superman because he's a really good actor.
And he looks like Superman
He
as well,
does.
and he has the body mass
And
of Superman.
I remember when people were like, oh, how dare he play Superman? How could you get this British person? He doesn't look big enough. But then you see him in the films, you're like, yeah,
Wow.
that is Superman.
Yeah, he's hench as hell. Well, hopefully he'll be the God Emperor in the upcoming Warhammer 40,000 series. I feel like there's sort of a cult work developing around Henry Cavill.
Yes, yeah.
I feel like I'm definitely part of that cult.
Same here.
Yeah. Well,
Also, if he does, he said he wants to be in a Mass Effect TV series or film if they do one. So
Oh my
that
God,
will
it's bring all
definitely
our dreams
grow
come true, yeah.
his cult following.
God, what next? Like, he's going to be Sauron in Lord of the Rings. As soon as Sauron switches to a new character from Sauerbrand, yeah, I mean, he'll be in everything. All the science fiction, all the fantasy. So that's all we've got for today's episode, folks. I hope you enjoyed our wonderful chat about the Dark Knight trilogy. This is personally a trilogy that I'm very passionate about. And if you ever met me in real life, I'm quoting this on a daily basis. Almost.
Why so serious?
I know. Why have we got to be so serious? Well, it's because it's the end of the episode and we got to talk serious. And if you really liked our episode, then please pick up the mic and listen to some of the stuff that they've got on there as well. And if you really, really like it, give us a like, leave us a comment, and subscribe. And if you really, really, really like it, then please go onto our Patreon and give us some of that Gotham dollar so we can spend it on bat suits. me and Josh are going to become vigilantes, aren't we?
Through the streets of London.
Yeah, man. We'll
Forget Gotham, London, here we come.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen Tottenham, Batman? Yeah, come to Tottenham, see what happens there, Batman. It's been wonderful, thanks. Have a lovely rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
See ya, folks.
Bye-bye.